Well, good morning, Willowbrook. Thank you for joining us for our deep dive. Today, we're in Exodus chapter 5, verses 1 to 14. In this part of the story, remember, Moses is with trepidation, obeying God and what he's called him to do. He has headed back to Egypt. Along the way, Aaron's joined him up, and now they're going to go before Pharaoh, which had to be surreal for him. Remember, the last time he's in Egypt, he kills an Egyptian, and he has a price on his head, and now he's going to go to Pharaoh, and it had to be unique. Again, we see him going twice to Pharaoh, asking that God let his people go. This time he's going with Aaron, and interesting that he requests that they go for 3 days to go and make sacrifice to God. At this point, he's not asking that they be totally released, but for Pharaoh, it had to be amazing because remember, they're coming and speaking to him. They both are probably they would be in their 80s. And Pharaoh's not used to people coming and demanding from him. Again, as the king, as seen as the God living, people respected him. They were fearful for him. And here they are coming to him and asking directly, let my people go. Pharaoh, again, refuses, comes up with different reasons to fight back, but basically says no. And so Aaron and Moses leave, but Pharaoh, struck by that, makes a hard command. He goes to his leaders and said, hey, these Israelites, apparently lazy. They want a 3-day holiday. I tell you what, cut off what they're doing. You give them straw to be added to the mud so they can make these bricks. Well, don't give them straw anymore. And you can't make these bricks that are going to stay once they're hardened without that straw to hold it together. So guess what? They can go out at night and other times, and they can gather their own straw, which would add hours and hours to labor. But he said, do that and don't reduce the requirement of the bricks they are to produce. And because of this, as we're going to see, it creates animosity between the Israelites and Moses. Now, here's the amazing thing. We don't know exactly what Moses expected. Maybe Moses went in, and to this point, God has done some incredible things. There's been the burning bush. There's been these amazing things that he can do, turn water into blood, take his staff and throw it down. It becomes a snake. And maybe he expected to go, and he thought Pharaoh would say, hey, yeah, sure, go, because he thought, God's going to force it upon him, but it didn't happen. In other words, God had a plan. Moses was part of that plan, but he didn't understand exactly how that plan was going to work out. And to me, that's the commonality that we have today, is that we have a call in our life from God. We have a plan that God has us living out. The problem is we don't know how it's going to work out in real time. And I think sometimes we set ourselves up when we have kind of expectations. We think, okay, here's what God's going to do. And if he doesn't, quote, live up to that expectation for us, we become angry. We become disappointed at God for not doing what we expected. And I think sometimes we have to understand we're part of this drama. We're part of this plan that God is orchestrating to bring glory to himself, to bring people to a relationship with Christ. But we don't get to see the big picture. We only see our little piece. Kind of like in war, sometimes there are orders given that certain people have to follow in this division, and they only see what they're having to do. Maybe they're creating a skirmish here so something else can happen there, and they don't always get to see the big picture. They have to obey at that tactical level what they've been called to do, and that's what we have to do. On that tactical level, are we loving God? Are we loving others? Are we taking the message he's given us and taking it beyond ourselves so it's shared in the world that we're in? We're on mission with God, and just like Moses, we just take the next step God directs us to. So the next time you feel like, wait a minute, God, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. Don't think that's strange. I think one day we'll see. One day we'll understand the big picture. But right now, our call is obedience. Just as Moses and Aaron were called to ask Pharaoh to let the people go, we're called to obey God in our next step. We're so glad you're part of this journey with us in our daily devos. Continue tomorrow. Continue as we go through Exodus and see God work to take his people out of Egypt into the place he's called them to be. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you so much for being with us.